I have so not looked forward to doing this video. The events of the weekend in Orlando are so horrific that it's hard to put all of this into words that have any real meaning and don't end up being the cliches that all of us are hearing from all different sources. The first thing I think to be clear about is that 49 people were murdered, 53 people were injured, and more than 100 families irreparably damaged forever from the loss of loved ones who went way too soon. That sounds a little cliched in itself, doesn't it? But the truth of the matter is those are the people, the murdered, the survivors, and their families and loved ones. Those are the folks who are directly affected by this. Everything I'm going to say moving forward in this video is more about the feelings and the despair and the helplessness that those of us not directly affected are feeling in support of, but helpless in our ability to do something concrete for the people who were actually directly diminished by this gunman. That having been said, there's been all kinds of talk about Muslim extremism and gun control and politicizing this tragedy for the purpose of promoting your agenda about gun control. There's been very little talk about the fact that disproportionately the group of people directly affected are Latino, and that's an important issue that I don't think that we should lose sight of, that not only the gay community in Orlando, but the Latino community has been had a hole literally blown into it. I've also found it a little bit interesting that we're not hearing much about mental health being a problem here. I think that's because normally the folks that bring up the mental health issue want to make the shooter crazy, and this time, because the shooter was Muslim, we don't have to go down that road. We just let him be Muslim and that gets us where we want to go. Just saying. But I can only look at this in terms of the way I looked at it, which was as a member of the LGBT community, and how that affected me indirectly because it was a group of people who were targeted because they're like me. And that feels a little bit different than when it's a group of people are targeted that are not like me. It feels a little closer to home. And the only thing I have learned, I don't know that there's anything I knew to know today that I didn't know a week ago, but the one thing I did know about myself is a couple of weeks ago, and some of the folks watching this video may have actually heard me say something along these lines, that you know, a dozen years ago, the Republican Party seeking re-election for President Bush were using a constitutional amendment to prohibit same-sex marriage as a wedge issue in that presidential campaign. And here a dozen years later, we have a Supreme Court ruling that affirms that we have a constitutional right to marriage equality, and feeling a little bit complacent, a little bit cocky about the amount of progress that we have made in a dozen years and where we are. There's still work to be done, but you know, it's all kind of good. And having a whole conversation going on a couple of weeks ago about the threat of transgender women in bathrooms. And not to diminish that issue, because all people should be afforded the dignity that they deserve and the ability to be who they are in the identity that they have. I don't mean to diminish that, but it seemed to me that compared to some of the things that we have been through as gay folks over my lifetime, our opposition was really starting to have to go to a place where they were identifying the weakest group of people within our community to attack, because they were no longer comfortable attacking gay people writ large or lesbians writ large. They
the CEO of Apple.
Focusing on the Tea part of the equation because that seemed an easy target. And then this happened, and all of a sudden I felt like, instead of coming from the perspective of, is that what you've got left for us? You're going to fight with us about which bathroom our transgender folks use? That's what you've got left for us? No, what they had left for us was an AR-15. And 49 people dead on the floor and 53 people fighting for their lives. And all of these families devastated. And it struck me, out of my own complacency and out of my own little bit of cockiness there, that stepping back and looking at it, that in the moment of that horror and the things and the images and the stories that we have heard about what happened inside the bar in Orlando, the people who were rushing to try to find shelter, trying to get out of the bar, people rushing into a bathroom to try to blockade themselves from this gunman. And I'm pretty sure that in the rush to try to find safety, nobody was checking to see what kind of equipment was going into the men's room and the women's room, because this had gotten very real. And it had gotten very dangerous. And we have these stories of the people from within those bathrooms texting their loved ones as they knew that they were about to die. So I don't think, even though we're going to move over the course of the next week or two toward putting this on the shelf, and this is another American tragedy, and that's what's going to happen, because we've been here on this road before. This is the America that we have created, governed by the officials that we deserve. But in the final analysis, it seems to me that the bathroom issue, that for gay folks now, we do need to make sure that we stand united in making sure that our transgendered men and women that are part of our community are afforded the dignity that they deserve. But somehow the conversation around gays in bathrooms and LGBT people in bathrooms will always, for me, now remain about those moments of horror which made the whole thing a whole lot more real than I realized it was even a week ago.